Laughter at the Whitewood Estate ballroom crackled like static, sharp, rehearsed, and laced with venom. At the head of the long banquet table, Chelsea Langford, the 42-year-old CEO of a billion-dollar tech firm, swirled her wine and pointed the glass toward a man seated quietly at the far end of the room. "Tell me something, Daniel," she smirked, her voice dripping with theatrical cruelty. "Is being invisible your thing, or is silence the only trick you've got?" The table fell quiet, except for a few forced chuckles from the executives sitting nearby. Daniel Reed, a 44-year-old single father with rough, weathered hands and a button-down shirt that had clearly seen better days, said nothing at first. He adjusted the cuff of his sleeve and looked her squarely in the eye. Measured. The moment rippled across the room like a taut wire. No one said a word, but everyone felt it. Something had shifted. None of them knew that in less than 5 minutes, this soft-spoken man, the one they laughed at, would be the only thing standing between Chelsea Langford and total chaos. Before we dive in, remember to like, comment where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button for more gripping true stories. Let's get started. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, a high-profile investor banquet in downtown Denver, hosted at the historic Langford Hall, a former courthouse turned elite event space. Massive chandeliers glowed above the marble floors. The scent of luxury perfume mixed with the subtle bitterness of ego and ambition in the air. Chelsea ruled over the evening like a monarch. Sharp, unapologetic, and merciless with her words. She was the storm behind the power. Daniel had only been invited because his 12-year-old daughter had won an innovation contest at a school her company sponsored. He didn't fit in. No designer blazer, no expensive watch. Just denim, dignity, and a stillness that made people uncomfortable. "Do you even know what we're discussing?" Chelsea's voice sliced through the noise of silverware and small talk. "Or did you show up just for the free meal?" A few laughed. Daniel did not. Instead, his voice, deep, level, and calm, finally filled the room. "I'm here because you asked," he said simply. And sometimes, the quietest person at the table is the one listening the closest. Eyebrows rose. Someone coughed into their napkin. Chelsea's smile faltered for just a second, but she didn't have time to reply. It happened so fast. Crack like thunder. Then a second bang. Screams erupted as the double doors burst open. 2 men in ski masks stormed into the room, waving steel rods and sending trays and glasses flying. Guests leapt from their chairs. Others dove beneath the tablecloths. Waitstaff screamed as they were shoved aside. "Wallets! Phones! Nobody move!" one of the men barked, his voice wild and unstable. Chelsea's hand trembled as she clutched her wineglass. Her commanding presence evaporated in an instant. Her face went pale as the masked man moved toward her, yanking at the diamond necklace around her throat. Then Daniel stood. No one noticed at first. But his chair scraped loudly across the marble, the sound distinct amid the panic. His movements were slow but certain. He stepped forward without a word. The man holding Chelsea's wrist didn't see it coming. Daniel's hand shot forward, clamping around the attacker's arm with force that defied his calm demeanor. "Let her go," Daniel said, his voice low but unshakably firm. "Back off," the man growled, raising his rod to strike. But Daniel was faster. A blur of motion, then the weapon clattered across the floor. Gasps echoed through the hall. Chelsea froze, her mouth slightly open, eyes locked on the man she had mocked not 10 minutes earlier. The ghost, at her table, had become her shield. The room descended into chaos. Screams bounced off the walls. Fine silverware clanged against the floor. Executives who had strutted moments before were now curled beneath tablecloths, shielding their Rolexes and cowering like children. But Daniel didn't hide. His grip tightened on the attacker's arm until bone shifted beneath the skin. With a swift shove, he sent the man sprawling across the polished floor. The rod rolled away useless. The second masked man hesitated. His eyes narrowed as if trying to compute what had just happened. Then he lunged forward, slashing with a pocket knife that glinted under the chandelier. Gasps swept the room again. Chelsea choked on her breath, words caught in her throat. For once, she had nothing sharp to say. "Daniel," she called out, her voice barely more than a whisper. He didn't look back. With remarkable precision, Daniel sidestepped the attack, driving his shoulder into the man's chest. The knife went flying, clinking underneath a table. In one practiced motion, Daniel swept the man's legs and pinned him face down against the floor. This wasn't flashy. It wasn't something out of a martial arts movie. It was raw, efficient, and real, moves learned not in a dojo, but in the dark, unforgiving hours of a hard life. Down! Daniel shouted. And the entire room obeyed. Even the screaming stopped for a moment. Heads peeked from behind overturned chairs. People stared at him with wide, breathless eyes. They had just witnessed the quietest man in the room dismantle two armed threats with nothing but grit and resolve. Chelsea's chest heaved. Her mind replayed every smug comment she had made that night. "Do you even understand what we're talking about?" Her words rang in her ears now like poison. The man she dismissed as invisible had just saved her life. Chelsea Langford had always seen him as lesser, less polished, less relevant, less deserving of a seat at her table. But now, after watching him stand between her and danger without hesitation, the illusion of superiority shattered. The two masked men, bruised and humiliated, stumbled toward the exit in retreat. They had come expecting easy targets, not a fight, especially not from the man who had barely spoken a word all evening. One of them shouted a curse over his shoulder as they vanished into the night. Then, for a moment, the room fell into an oppressive silence. The kind of silence that follows a lightning strike, charged, dense, and heavy. Slowly it broke. A few uncertain claps. Then more. Soon, the entire room was on its feet. Executives, servers, even the event security who had frozen during the ordeal. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. "He dropped both of them," murmured another in disbelief. But Daniel Reed didn't bask in their awe. He didn't smile or bow or even acknowledge the applause. He simply adjusted the sleeve of his worn shirt, gave Chelsea a passing glance, and returned to his seat, the very one from which he had been mocked only moments earlier. And now, every eye in the room was locked on him. Chelsea stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. Gratitude and guilt churned inside her like a storm. She wanted to say something, anything, but her throat closed tight. How do you apologize to a man you had just ridiculed minutes before he saved your life? "Daniel?" Her voice cracked. She stepped forward, heels clicking awkwardly across the marble floor. But before she could continue, he lifted a hand, not in anger, but with a calm finality. "There's no need," he said quietly. There was no resentment in his tone, only a weariness. As if he had heard 1,000 hollow apologies before. Chelsea felt a weight pressing on her chest. The woman who had dominated boardrooms, crushed competition, and commanded entire corporations, now stood speechless. Powerless. The event unraveled quickly after that. Police arrived, statements were taken, and guests filtered out in clusters, whispering about the quiet man who had become a protector. Outside, reporters swarmed like flies. Cameras flashed, questions flew, and Chelsea raised her arm to shield her face from the blinding lights. Daniel, meanwhile, had no interest in praise. He slipped quietly through a side exit, stepping into the sharp chill of the night. His breath steamed in the cold air as he moved toward the sidewalk. Chelsea caught up to him just as he reached the street. "Daniel, wait." Her voice was softer now. No smugness, no sharp edge, only uncertainty. "You could have just let them take what they wanted. You didn't have to get involved." Daniel turned, his tired eyes meeting hers. "I didn't do it for you." She blinked, startled. "My daughter's 10, he continued. "If she were in a place like this, scared like you were tonight, I'd want someone to stand up for her." He took a breath. "Protection doesn't come from money, Chelsea. It comes from courage." His words cut deeper than any insult ever had. There was no arrogance in his voice. No desire to be thanked. Just a simple truth. For the first time in her life, Chelsea Langford, queen of boardrooms and bulldozer of opponents, felt her control slip. Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them away. "You're a better leader than I am," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Daniel shook his head. I'm just a dad trying to raise a kid, he said. In a world where too many people look the other way. His words hung in the air, heavier than the winter wind between them. Chelsea swallowed hard, her throat dry. At least, let me do something. A donation to your daughter's school? A proper thank you dinner? Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. You want to repay me? He said. Next time you're sitting across from someone who doesn't look like they belong, maybe try seeing them before you judge them. Chelsea stood speechless as he walked away, fading into the night. The woman who once mocked him now watched him leave with a painful understanding that true strength didn't wear a suit or sit at the head of a table. It walked away without fanfare, because it didn't need applause. That night, Chelsea Langford didn't sleep. She tossed and turned in her penthouse apartment, watching the glittering skyline of Denver through her window like it was promising something she no longer believed in. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel, his steady hands, the unshakable calm in his eyes as he shielded her, and the way he left without asking for anything in return. For a woman who had spent her life surrounded by sharks in glass offices, it was disarming. No one had ever done something for her without expecting a favor, a deal, or a seat at her table. But Daniel had. And she had spent the entire evening mocking him. By morning, she made a decision. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Daniel Reed returned to his ordinary life. His 10-year-old daughter, Emily, with her lopsided grin and oversized backpack, was finishing breakfast at their modest kitchen table. The apartment was old but spotless, patched walls and all. "Dad, you're gonna be late again," Emily teased, spooning cereal into her mouth. "You need to eat too, or you'll pass out at work." Daniel chuckled, ruffling her hair as he passed by. "I'll grab something on the way. Don't worry about me, kiddo." But Emily did worry. She noticed the lines etched into her father's face, the meals he skipped, the nights he came home bone-tired. So he smiled, for her. That morning, Daniel walked her to school like he always did. He kissed her forehead at the gate and then headed straight to his job at the auto shop. The whir of power tools, clang of wrenches, and scent of motor oil grounded him. It was a far cry from the glittering marble floors of Chelsea's world. And that was fine by him. He figured the bizarre night would soon fade into memory. Maybe a news article or two. A footnote in someone else's story. He was wrong. Around noon, the sound of high-performance engines broke the familiar hum of the garage. A line of sleek black SUVs pulled up outside, drawing stares from the mechanics. One of them nudged Daniel and pointed. From the first vehicle stepped Chelsea Langford, flanked by assistants in tailored suits. Daniel froze in place, a streak of grease on his palms, still holding the small tub of Axle lubricant. His face twisted in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered under his breath. The garage fell silent. The other mechanics leaned around car hoods and engine blocks, whispering to each other and gaping toward the entrance. "No way," someone whispered. "Is that really her?" "The CEO?" another asked. But there was no mistake. Chelsea Langford, in her signature navy blue suit and heels that clicked like a metronome on the concrete floor, was striding directly toward Daniel with unflinching purpose. Gone was the smirk, the air of condescension. In her eyes now was something else entirely, resolve. "Daniel," she said, her voice low but clear. "We need to talk." Daniel sighed, wiping his hands on a nearby rag, still not quite believing what he was seeing. "I figured we already did that," he replied without hostility, but with the weariness of a man who had lived too much in too little time. Chelsea shook her head. "No. Last night you protected me. And before that, I mocked you. That doesn't sit right with me." Daniel crossed his arms. "You don't owe me anything, Chelsea. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was the right thing to do." "I know," she said quickly, stepping closer. "That's exactly why I can't let this go. You showed me something I'd forgotten, what real leadership looks like. And what real decency feels like." The mechanics had stopped pretending not to listen. One even dropped his wrench. Daniel let out a soft, tired chuckle. "Words are easy, Chelsea. Action's what matters." Her expression softened. "Then let me show you." That same evening, as Daniel arrived at the school gates to pick up his daughter, he was met with an unexpected sight. Standing near the entrance, looking slightly out of place but no less determined, was Chelsea Langford. She held a brand new backpack, one strikingly similar to the one worn by 10-year-old Emily, who tugged at Daniel's sleeve. "Dad, who's that?" she asked, squinting against the sun. Daniel cleared his throat. "That's Miss Langford. 'Tis from work." Chelsea knelt down to Emily's height, her designer blazer catching the last rays of sunlight. She looked less like a corporate titan and more like a woman trying to make something right. "You must be Emily," she said gently. "Your dad is incredibly brave. He saved me the other night." Emily's eyes lit up like fireworks. "He did? I knew it," she beamed, turning to her father. "I told you you're a hero, Dad." Daniel's cheeks flushed. "All right, kiddo, don't go buying me a cape just yet." Chelsea smiled, an actual smile, warm and unpolished. Then she extended the backpack. "This is for you," she said. "I noticed yours is getting a little worn. There are some books inside. Art supplies too. I heard you like to draw." Emily gasped, clutching the backpack like it was made of gold. "For me? But thank you, Ma'am." Chelsea touched her shoulder with surprising tenderness. "You don't have to call me ma'am. Just Chelsea." Daniel watched in silence, a tug-of-war of emotions twisting in his chest. Part of him wanted to shield his daughter from being used, for guilt, for show. But the sincerity in Chelsea's eyes told him this wasn't about PR. It was something far more personal. Days became weeks. And Chelsea kept showing up, not with photographers or press releases, but with quiet acts of kindness. She made an anonymous donation to Emily's school, ensuring every underprivileged child could receive a free lunch. She personally arranged for increased security in Daniel's neighborhood after hearing about a recent uptick in break-ins. And one Saturday morning, there she was, sitting in the front row of the school's art fair, clapping louder than anyone when Emily was handed a small ribbon for her watercolor painting of a treehouse. But the greatest transformation wasn't in Chelsea's wallet or her wardrobe. It was in her soul. In her boardroom, she no longer dismissed the quiet ones. She listened. She invited janitors, interns, and junior staff to meetings and asked for their ideas that often eclipsed those of the executives. She had begun to see people not as positions, but as stories. And one night, as she and Daniel stood outside a small convenience store, the air cooling with evening stillness, she finally asked the question that had been haunting her since that unforgettable banquet. "Daniel," she said, leaning against the wall beside him, "why were you so calm that night? Everyone else panicked. Even I panicked." Daniel took a slow breath. "Because panic doesn't save anyone," he said. "My wife died when Emily was 4. Since then, I made myself a promise, never freeze if she needs me. I guess that promise, it stuck." His eyes drifted upward toward the sky. "And maybe it applies to anyone who's scared, not just her." Chelsea swallowed hard. Her throat tightened. For the first time in years, tears burned her eyes, not from fear, but from something far deeper. Admiration. "You don't even realize it, do you?" she whispered. "You changed me. I mocked you because I thought silence meant weakness. But it turns out, it's a strength I never understood." Daniel shrugged, almost sheepishly. "We all learn from each other." She chuckled softly. "Even COs? That's the best kind," he said. It was the first genuine laugh he had heard from her. A few weeks later, during another glittering investor dinner, Chelsea did something no one expected. When a senior partner mocked a shy young man at the far end of the table, Chelsea stood up. Her voice cut through the din like a blade. "Be careful who you laugh at," she said firmly. "Sometimes the quiet ones are the only reason you survive when everything falls apart." The room went silent. Heads turned. But there was no humor in their faces this time, only respect. And somewhere near the back, Daniel Reed, invited once again only because Emily had won another modest school prize, caught her eye. She gave him the smallest nod. A quiet promise, spoken without a word. This time, the quiet man was no longer invisible. And Chelsea Langford was no longer the same woman who had mocked him. Some stories make you think. Others make you feel. But if this one made you see the world a little differently, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true-to-life tales that stay with you long after the credits roll.